And we are live here on YouTube. Sorry for the delay here. We've had some issues here just trying to deal with a lot of the internet connectivity and like a lot of the technology. I haven't streamed in a while. Apologies for the delay in getting here on the air. I know some of you on the channel here are curious to hear my thoughts on what happened tonight on AEW Grand Slam Mexico. Listen, okay, so I was doing this for like about 5 minutes, and I almost did like it was almost like a sound check because hey, live things, and hey, everybody wants to rip on me for being kind of some people get in my comments, some people get in my chat, and get mad at me for oh, you're not a real broadcaster. It's like, guys, I'm just an idiot who loves wrestling. I want to, share my opinions and my thoughts because at the heart of this is what we do. We just love watching stuff and we love connecting over stuff, whether we love it or we hate it. And, tonight was one of those weird examples of like, listen, I get what AEW was trying to do. I do. I really do. You go to a unique venue. You just saw WWE have a lucha libre thing. Granted, this was long before, and I know some people will get at me about that. Listen, my whole thing with this show is nothing mattered. Nothing mattered whatsoever. And hi to my friend Hunter over there in the chat. Listen, nothing mattered on this show. Great wrestling, great graps, but my whole issue is that we spent 2.5 hours watching this show. And honest to God, what are you guys going to remember about this show? We're 24 days away from AEW's WrestleMania. That's what we are. They went to Mexico. Cool. The ambiance and the creation of the environment was unbelievable. Like, I loved it. I loved that vibe of it. And, the crowd had a lot of energy. They were really into virtually everything. It was great to really witness that a venue as iconic as Arena Mexico in the world of lucha libre, in the world of professional wrestling. This was a big time event, and it felt like it. But at least from like an atmosphere perspective, from a show perspective, this was a skippable episode of Dynamite. I saw some people on the internet who are AEW fanboys basically saying, "Dude, what are you talking about? That's the best Dynamite of the year." What? If you were to ask me what I'm going to remember most about this show, I'm going to remember 3 things. Number 1, Mercedes Moné, lol, won another championship, which is comically ridiculous. It's gotten to the point where I've said it here on my channel. She is a cancer. She is a cancer to professional wrestling. And I don't know what the whole story about this is, if this is just some sort of ego trip or if this is just her having her little joyride. Nobody is looking good in this. Tony Khan is enabling it. Mercedes is whatever she's doing and whatever type of power, it doesn't look good for her. It's none of this looks good for anybody. So that's the first thing. Number 2, Hangman Page can speak fluent I can't even talk. He can speak fluent Spanish, which is fucking great. Granted, I mean, I wouldn't have liked to Excalibur to be speaking over every second and third word. I understand he was trying to translate it, but there were better ways to handle that. But still, it was pretty cool to start off and, really cement like the first guy that you see on this big stage that they're setting up is Hangman Adam Page. And that may reaffirm that, hey, he's got to win in Texas in 24 nights at All In Texas. But, we'll get there at that point. And then number 3, it was something not even related to wrestling. It was Brody King showing up in an Abolish ICE shirt. As a guy who lives in Los Angeles, you guys know the whole ICE situation going on here. This was not a good, when you're remembering those 3 things, it's not a good thing. And yeah, Hunter, I'm going to get to that in a second about the whole women's thing. When I get through to the Mercedes, I need to, I've said this before on the channel. AEW doesn't give a shit about women's wrestling. Also, the people in Arena Mexico could give a shit about women's wrestling. They couldn't be bothered to make a single solitary peep. They couldn't give a fuck about that match. They couldn't give a fuck about that. Like, holy shit, man. That place was dead for that match. So those are the three things that I really remember about this. You guys can get at me in the chat. Again, sorry for the delay. This is a live edition of Off the Top Rope here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Get at me, social media, Off the Mic 28, OT Mike Sports is where you can follow the channel. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere. Go ahead and follow me. If you like this content, go recommend it to your friends. Even go recommend it to some of the people because, hey, I attract a lot of haters. We're almost at 1,500 strong, and you guys are, honest to God, I swear, everybody thinks I'm trying to be JD from New York, or everybody thinks I'm trying to be, one of these other content creators. Listen, those guys are the OGs. And no matter how you feel for them, I completely and utterly respect what they do and what they've done for this community. They've paved the way for people like me to try and have a platform like this and do this. So if this looks rinky-dink and janky and everything, I've tried my best to only do short clips, but I wanted to go live because I knew this was a big show. I knew with All In coming up, and I know especially on AEW nights, y'all are a lot more active here on social media that I can kind of recommend and kind of speak to the masses here. So listen, the overriding theme, man, is just like nothing mattered on this show. And when you're basically close to your WrestleMania, and I understand some people could say, man, Mike, what are you talking about? WrestleMania was not a good build. Guys, at least at WrestleMania, they invested in some of their storylines and got you to care. When it came to the big matches that were on this show, and you know what, I'll also give a shout out, in terms of the three things I remember. The MJF and, Mystico stuff was great. Mystico's ovation was great. And MJF is as good of a big match wrestler as there is, and he can tell a story as well as anybody in the ring. The finish of that match was a completely separate issue, and I think we're getting a second match, which for Maxwell Jacob Friedman to not have any direction a little over 3 weeks before the biggest show of the year for AEW is a joke. It is a joke. It's just as big of a joke as Athena not being on the card. So it's just like, yo, wait, what are we... what is AEW really setting out to accomplish here? Are they trying to create a partner? Are they trying to showcase them? Are they trying to build their biggest show of the year? Because if you watch this show, what happened on it that really makes you feel any better about going in All In? Like I said, I named probably about 3, maybe 4 things. And one of those things was a guy wearing a Abolish ICE shirt in Brody King. And listen, no matter how you feel about Brody King, I am all for freedom of expression. So more power to Brody King to do whatever the fuck he wants. So it's just, if you were there and watched it in Mexico, it's a great viewing experience. As somebody who watches at home, and I've seen so many people say this is one of the best Dynamites they've ever seen. It's like, to who? There was good wrestling, but again, none of it meant anything. This meant jack shit to the grand scheme of things in anything. Like, if you're talking about a partnership to CMLL, it didn't mean anything. When it talks about you're trying to build to your biggest show of the year, I really didn't feel it did that much to build. The 3 big matches on this show. And we can kind of get into the review. I'm kind of just going all over the place here. And if you guys have any comments, please drop them in the chat. Super chats are welcome. Any way you guys can support the channel. But you guys just being here, I think, is the most important thing right now. So you can kind of hear just my raw thoughts. I've kind of had a little while here, about a couple hours to really sit on this and, kind of marinate. And also, if you guys haven't, go check out my Mercedes Mone reaction. I had to get that in 10 minutes, just get it out to you guys immediately rather than, just, go all over the place because I'm going to review the show here on the channel. But I just don't see really what the goal or what they were really setting out to do, which is why I say, why not have this after Texas? Why not have this, on the road to Forbidden Door? That would have made a whole hell of a lot more sense. Because at least you're crossing over with CMLL. You've got that crossover. That would have made more sense than throwing it smack dab right in the middle of the build to your biggest show of the year, where, again, let's look at the 3 matches that are being billed as the mega matches and really the main events of this show. Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley really did did a decent job. I mean, Hangman had his promo early on. Him and Moxley, I mean, they had the whole thing with the Young Bucks. They're still not even really hinting at the Swerve thing. I thought they might. That was a little bit disappointing. Um, Look, I feel a little bit more optimistic that Hangman and Moxley will main event the show because I think Hangman should win the world championship. That just makes a ton of sense. He came across as the top guy, but also Kenny Omega was not there, which leads me into that match. The fuck did they do for Okada and Omega? Also, separately, did you guys notice this? And some people are saying that I'm crazy for saying this. I am big on consistency when it comes to like selling storylines. Okay. That's a big thing with me. And Kenny Omega got his insides pummeled. They sold the diverticulitis. He had that fake blood, which was comical. Will Ospreay got kicked in the head with thumbtacks last week. Will Ospreay's able to wrestle a match. Kenny Omega didn't even show up. This is not on either one of those guys. But from a kayfabe standpoint, how does that make any sense? One guy got kicked in the head. One guy got his insides pummeled in. One's not there. The other is wrestling in a full-blown wrestling match. What? That doesn't make any sense. So Kenny Omega not being there, like Mark Briscoe, I love Mark Briscoe. It doesn't make any sense. Like Mark Briscoe, like what did that do? And Okada, like he looked like he was wrestling at about like half speed. So that's it. And then don't even get me started on Mercedes and Tony Storm and what they've done in the last month for that match. The biggest matchup of all time. Mercedes is eating dinner. Tony Storm looks like Carmen Sandiego. Mina Shirakawa is just there. Mercedes has got 17 championships. It's pure comedy. That like the biggest wrestling match of all time, and people are still trying to convince me that should main event the show. So, yeah, Hunter, you're right. There's really still zero explanation why Okada joined up with Don Callis. Why does Don Callis need to be involved in this? What the fuck, man? So, anyway, so let's get into it. Hangman talked about his upbringing to start the show. I would have liked it if Excalibur didn't really. They could have come up with a better way, maybe to put some subtitles on the screen, or maybe even had a translator or something like that, rather than having commentary just talk over it. You could have just let the atmosphere tell the story. It was a bold choice. I give Hangman credit for going out there and doing that, because that's hard to do, to go out in front of not your home country and speaking, not in your native tongue for an extended period of time. I give Hangman a ton of credit. He's the guy. They've got to crown him at All In. So, like I said, it was an interesting way to start. He wasn't involved in the main event, or he wasn't involved until the main event. So, and then we got into a 14-man tag, everybody. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of a 14-man tag. Like, holy ever-loving shit. This was as big of a schmoz and as much of a thrown-together match as I've ever seen. Because none of these guys have any relevance whatsoever to the overall build of All In. None of them. Like, you can say that Adam Cole and Kyle Fletcher are building towards something, but, so it's Adam Cole, Templario, Atlantis Jr., Brody King in his Abolish Ice shirt, Daniel Garcia, and Bandito, the Ring of Honor champion. By the way, Bandito is the Ring of Honor champion, is getting a ton of time. Why can't they get Athena on the fucking show? That's beyond me. I understand Bandito's a luchador, and he's actually really good. So they're taking on Hechicero, Dax the Axe, Harwood, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, Lance Archer, Josh Alexander, and Volador Jr. A 14-man tag. There were so many people in this match, you couldn't fit all of these guys on the fucking ring. That's how comical this was. Like, a 14-man tag, and some people will come at me and basically say, well, Mike, the WWE did those, those old, bragging rights matches, or, I was at a SummerSlam 15 years ago here in Los Angeles where, it was Team WWE led by John Cena taking on the Nexus. And it's funny how we look back on that match in the grand scheme of things of how that shaped WWE. So yeah, but yeah, that match at least had stakes. The match at Bragging Rights over Raw versus SmackDown, at least that had some stakes. This had no relevance or whatsoever other than to throw 14 dudes onto a show. And I can't even tell you a single solitary spot that I can remember out of that match. Because I didn't care. I just did not care. It just did not make any fucking sense whatsoever. It just nobody gave a shit about this match. Like, at least if, for average fans, like if you're really into this party match wrestling type shit, like it's fine for you. But still, for me, it just didn't do anything. So the one thing that I'll remember out of this match, Dax Harwood, he got pinned by a 62-year-old man. I understand Atlantis is a legend, but what? Dax Harwood 2 months ago was turning on Adam Copeland. Where's that story gone? Cash Wheeler wasn't there because of legal issues, because he's got a rap sheet on him and he probably couldn't get over the border. But what? Dax Harwood takes the pin on a roll up in that match? Also, why were some of the baby faces like there was some explanation on commentary, but guys, this is what happens when you just throw a bunch of dudes into the match, a lot of whom nobody really cares about. And it's just this big schmoz of a match. It's like, you don't need to book 97-man tags and just do a bunch of everything. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. The main things that I'll remember overall in this entire match is Dax took the pin, which made no fucking sense given the overall, status of where FTR is supposed to be. They don't have a direction going into All In. And so yeah, Dax gets pinned by a 62-year-old man. I understand Atlantis is a legend, but what? Really? Come on. What are we doing? It's just, you have that, and then obviously you've got the Brody King stuff, which wasn't wrestling, and it's bigger than that. And like I said, I'm all for expressing things, and which, more power to Brody King. He's a Van Nuys guy, which is not that far from where I grew up. So cool. Us Valley kids got to hang together, Brody. And Brody would kick my ass if I ever said anything, so I don't want to say anything about him. So then we get Mark Briscoe and Kazuchika Okada. Listen, I love Mark Briscoe. I think he's a fucking national treasure. I really do. Why did this match need to happen? They made kind of like a half-ended, reference, and there was a promo on social media that set up this match because Briscoe and Kenny go back. Briscoe helped Kenny in a lot of different respects. Him and Okada faced each other in the Continental Classic, but why did they need to do this? You could have had, if you're going to align Okada with Don Callis, at least have him explain it. Don't do a fucking match. What? And Okada looked like he was wrestling at half speed. Briscoe was trying his best to make this thing work. Tried to go for a bunch of J drillers. This thing went about 10, 12, 13 minutes. Fine match. Okada wins with the Rainmaker. They do a little bit of an attack afterwards, and then, we kind of move on our merry way. But nothing really relevant. Like, Kenny Omega didn't show up. Will Ospreay showed up. Kenny Omega didn't show up. It's just like, if you're going to sell one of the injuries, sell both of the injuries. A lot of this just doesn't make any sense. And it's just like, it doesn't flow, and it doesn't make any sense. And it just doesn't make you feel connected to the show. Like, it feels like if you're there, you're more into it. But if you're not there and you're watching this from home and you just are looking this from week to week, you're like, man, not a lot of this makes sense. So, then we got to, in my opinion, the best thing on this whole show was Mystico and MJF. The Mystico entrance was honestly really just fabulous. Crowd was into it. There was a Sin Cara link into it. And listen, we can rip on Sin Cara. The guy was a legend. It didn't work out in WWE. It's unfortunate. Mystico is a legend over in Mexico. And it's easy to see why the people love him. I thought that was a really cool moment. MJF being his uber United States heel shtick. This was a really well-told story and a great match until the finish. Like, there was a lot of crazy stuff. I love the stuff with MVP basically saying, Max, you're being distracted. What the fuck are you doing? And I was thinking maybe that could lead to something with him in the Hurt Business. But then they just did this DQ finish where MJF just kicks Mystico low, takes off his mask, puts it on, and we kind of just move off of it, which leads me to believe, and then Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight show up, and that's really, that's going to be your tag match for All In Texas. Gee, how the mighty have fallen in the tag team division. Holy shit. My God. And it looks like, hey, we're getting Mystico and MJF. Listen, MJF did his damnedest. They did a great thing, but the finish didn't really make sense with the way that we're telling the story. It seems like they're going to run this back, and it also seems like, politics, politics kind of like, reared its ugly head. CMLL didn't want to have their top guy lose. They didn't want to have Max lose in AEW. Max didn't want to lose, and I think they're going to probably just run this back in Texas, which to me is a big step down for MJF. As much as I respect Mystico, the former Sin Cara, like this is a massive step down for Max, in my opinion. And it's just like, man, the mighty have fallen. So, yeah, it was entertaining. Like this, at least this had a story. Then you had the 4 million pesos high flying fatal 4-way. What in the actual fuck was this? Ricochet, Leo Rush, Hologram, and Mascara Dorado. Just a bunch of dudes doing flips for an inordinate sum of money. For those of you math majors out there who tried to go through the exchange rate, this was 4 million pesos is about $210,000. So congratulations to Hologram, who is still undefeated in AEW because he is Tony Khan's favorite wrestler. And so that happened. Ricochet didn't win. I thought Ricochet for sure would win. This was a fun little match. It was a bunch of a spot pest, but it didn't mean anything. Oh boy. And then we get to the part of the show that I'm going to ham off on. I've already done this on the channel, but I need to listen. Everybody knows, listen, I have respect for what Mercedes has done for women's wrestling, but this run in AEW is a fucking joke. What did this serve in the middle of a build to your biggest women's world championship match? Like, what did this accomplish? She faces the Uxies. The match goes under 10 minutes. Mercedes again wins a kind of almost dangerous match. Kind of wins a damage. By the way, Marcus, thank you for the generosity, my friend. Thank you for that super chat, my brother. It's, listen, what does Mercedes do? Like a 10-minute match, she does a dangerous spot, like, literally like one of those power slam, like almost like a Spanish fly looking thing. And it's almost the same thing that she did with Jamie Hayter, except she didn't drop CUCs on her head, and she just wins. She just wins. Like what is the actual accomplishment of anything that goes on here? Like, it's just, I don't understand how, I don't get why Mercedes has to always she always has to win. And B, she has to win another championship. And C, it's like, why did this need to be on the show? Also, let's get to this. And Hunter, you brought this up, my man. Thank you. So what if you're AEW and you've got the biggest women's wrestling match of all time with two of the greats in this business in Toni Storm and Mercedes Mone on your bill? The best you could do for the women is a 10-minute wrestling match where Mercedes won again. You didn't even have to have her win. You could have had Toni come in for the DQ and help break it up, and Ziuxi still keeps the title. Why did Mercedes need to win? It's become so comical that she now has 6 championships. She's Mercedes 6 belts. And she can't, Aubrey Edwards, God bless her, is trying to put one of the championships on. Mercedes dropped one of them. Mercedes is kind of petite. She's not a big person. Like, at some point, you're going to run out of space to put these titles on. You're going to have to put them around your neck. You're going to have to wrap it around your head. I don't know what you're going to do. So, listen, I didn't care about this match because I knew what was going to happen. But shit, man, like, how is this growing women's wrestling? How is this growing women's wrestling? And Marcus, thank you for this stat. Like, yeah, since Crown Jewel 2021, she really hasn't put over anybody. And listen, we were all of us were mad when she got unceremoniously dumped from the Women's Royal Rumble in 2022. She should have, as far as I'm concerned, Sasha Banks should have won the Royal Rumble in 2022, not Ronda Rousey. That might have been the spawn of this whole reign of terror that Mercedes has taken us on. So in a weird way, I think we can blame Vince McMahon a little bit for what's going on here, because I guess this is Mercedes just outlashing at the rest of the world and basically just saying, hey, fuck all of you. Like, you guys all doubted me, so I'm just going to take all your championships. That being said, it's not good. Tony Khan's enabling it. Mercedes is enabling it. Whoever is involved in this, Jennifer Pepperman, whoever is involved in this, whoever is littered all over this, they all need to be fired. Tony Khan can't fire himself, but what in the fuck are you guys doing building your biggest women's match that you claim? You've got a TBS champion holding 6 belts. Half of them I don't even know where they're from. I know the what was it? The British Championship from the whatever company that was, like I can't Revival Pro. I don't even know, Prestige or something. Like, she went to a company in Austria that I've never fucking heard of and won a championship. CMLL, obviously, this was one of those things where it's like, okay, it's a championship and it's in Mexico and this is obviously a bucket list thing. To me, this is one of the biggest ego trips of all time. And I don't know if it's her just reigning at Rev Pro. Thank you, Hunter. That Rev Pro. Thank you. I remember that place because I know Ospreay had a banger with Michael Oku, which was outstanding. Look, I have respect for British wrestling, but it's just, listen, what does any of this do for the overall health of women's wrestling, not just in AEW, in general? Because, as I said, all they could do in a 2.5 hour broadcast, like they overdid their hand last week with a bunch of women's matches last week. The week before that, we got 3 segments for 12 minutes. This week, we got 1 match for 10 minutes. That's what Tony Khan thinks of women's wrestling right now. And you got to thank Mercedes Moné for that. In a weird way, you got to thank Vince McMahon, because I think this is just Mercedes just going through a phase and just going ham on everybody and just, running roughshod on this division. And this wasn't even an AEW match. One of my buddies actually asked me this in the chat, like, hey, she's got 6 championships now. Surely some of those should be on the line or should be winner take all at All In Texas. And I was thinking to myself, that's a good point. Tony's Women's World Championship is the only thing on the line in this match. How does that make any sense? When Mercedes is the TBS champion and she's barely defended it this year. The last time she defended that was against a CMLL girl for 5 minutes. Reina Isis or whatever her name was. Before that, she defended it against, 20-year-old Billy Starks? She wrestled Athena. It wasn't for the championship. I'll say this. Athena got away from that fast because she didn't lose the Ring of Honor championship in that respect. But holy shit, man. What in the world is women's wrestling in AEW right now? And they have sold their soul to just, frankly, I'll just call it, she's a witch right now. I don't know if this is just her lashing out or if this is her on a massive ego trip or if this is who she truly is. But fuck me for giving this woman a lot of respect. Like, it is embarrassing to see how this is all played out. It's just, it's really just, it makes me really upset. And I don't know how you could be a woman sitting in that locker room. If you could be Chris Statlander, if you could be Willow Nightingale, if you could be Megan Bain, Penelope Ford, Anna Jay, any of these one, Jamie Hayter, even though she's out with a concussion. I don't know how you could look at yourself and be like, man, I'm putting the faith of my career in the hands of Tony Khan. We have just as much of a talented roster as WWE. We have people here, but everybody's losing to Mercedes. And no matter who wins in Texas next month, and if it's Mercedes, it's a joke. Because 7 championships? And some people tell me, man, she lost the New Japan title. She didn't even get pinned. Guys, since she got to AEW in March of 2024, she has not lost a single match. Outside of, she's lost matches, but she has not, in a singles capacity, she has not been pinned. How is that growing anything whatsoever? Mo, listen, listen, I always respected her for her wrestling ability. And the perception that was always there was that Charlotte was the one hogging the spotlight, and Charlotte was getting all the accolades, and Charlotte was the one being thrust into the limelight. And she still was, and she still got a little bit of ego. And then it's somewhat become Becky over the years. Bayley's kind of just been sitting back and, like, is kind of the forgotten one of this whole four horsewoman. But holy shit, man. In the last year, I have not seen the perception of somebody change over the last 12, 13, like, listen, she got to AEW in March. The first sign that I knew we were in for some trouble was Double or Nothing when she just beat Willow Nightingale. I knew it was probably going to happen, but having Willow win the championship and then just lose it a month later did not do anybody any good. And then, hey, congratulations, you wrestled Stephanie Vicaire. And if some of these Mercedes stands want to give some credit, you say, hey, Mercedes in her platform, I guess, gave an opportunity to Stephanie Vicaire to ultimately become who she is right now. So I guess you could give that to Mercedes, but to me, that doesn't really matter. So Moises, listen, like, I think this is part of me thinks that this is a roundabout way that she's just getting this all out of her system until she's just ready to go back to WWE. But if I'm WWE, I don't think they need her. They don't. They made Tiffany Stratton, who literally has 4 years wrestling in her life, and it made her into a top star and made her look presentable. She's not perfect, but Tiffany Stratton looks like a real deal. Roxanne Perez at 21, 22, or 23 years old, and I got to interview Roxanne a few years ago. Wonderful young lady. And I think she's the future of this division. Liv Morgan, who a lot of people didn't even bat an eye at 7, 8 years ago in the Riot Squad, everybody's devastated that she got hurt. The WWE women's division absolutely does not fucking need Mercedes Moné. I think they would take Mercedes back if she wanted to come back, maybe give her a Hall of Fame induction, whatever. It's just, man, listen, I don't fucking get it, man. I do not fucking get what the end game here was for AEW. And it's getting to the point where I'm gonna lose my shit, man, if at All In Texas she just wins over Tony. Because I think the world of Tony, man. Because unlike Mercedes, Tony has evolved in this division. She has evolved. She came in with as the rocker, then she was the outcast, then she became timeless, then she had that whole metamorphosis with Mariah May. It's just, holy shit, man. Not surprising, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing. And I'm waiting for somebody, some of these people who are going to probably rail on me when they watch this video or rail on me on the video that I've done on the channel and basically be like, well, shit, Mike, she's the greatest. She's the GOAT. I'm like, because she has 7 championships, that makes her great? Why does she need to win every title? She hasn't put over anybody. Nobody. And even if Tony beats her, what does that accomplish? You built Mercedes up for this whole way only to knock her down because she can't win the big one. So basically, what does that say? Hey, that's a great way to say, hey, AEW's invested, which is why I think Mercedes is gonna ultimately win the championship in Texas. But this also stems down to, like, hey, we had Athena and Mercedes staring us right in the face, and that didn't happen. Because Mercedes wants to be on top. And Tony Khan's a mark. He's not going to tell her no. That's ambitious, Mo. Stacy Keibler over Mercedes. Stacy Keibler, God bless her, man. She was not a great wrestler. She was not a great wrestler. Tori Wilson, actually, by the way, I give Tori Wilson, a lot that era of, listen, that was a dark day for WWE and women's wrestling and the way they treated their women. Tori Wilson actually could work. Mercedes is still a good wrestler. Like, that's just my opinion. You guys can disagree with me on that, but I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but this was really, to me, this was the big story that happened. It was a fun show that really didn't mean anything. The one thing of significance that really happened is Mercedes won another championship that she didn't need to win, and we move on. So, main event. Congratulations to the Beast Mortos, by the way. We find out that he he is with the CEO, and then he's with the CEO, and lo and behold, hasn't worked a match at Arena Mexico in over a decade. Just gets thrust into the main event because Claudio's not there. I don't know if there was real travel issues. Beast Mortos just gets into the match. We couldn't get Roosh on this show. What was it? Serpentico. We couldn't get any of the La Facción and Gobernable dudes. Like, what? God, Beast Mortos, man. Hey, knows what he's doing, man. Clearly, they're happy together. Cool. Beauty and the Beast, whatever. And hey, he gets thrown into this main event match. And, Beast Mortos is fine. So, but it's Ospreay, Hobbs, Samoa Joe, Shibata, and Swerve taking on the Death Riders, which is Moxley and Yuta, and then the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, and then the Beast Mortos subbed in there. I said this earlier on in the show, and for those of you just joining on, why did Will Ospreay work tonight and Kenny Omega didn't? Why? Some people are telling me that I'm insane. I was like, they both were supposedly had significant injury angles that were shot a week ago. Will Ospreay got kicked in the face with thumbtacks. Yeah, he was good enough. Yeah, he wore a bandage, but hey, he's good enough to wrestle. Kenny Omega, yeah, I understand that he had a real life diverticulitis and took a couple of elbows to his midsection and was coughing up fake blood. But hey, Kenny Omega can't show up to build his match, but Will Ospreay's there, sure. I don't know how anybody could tell me that that's okay. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, listen, I don't remember a lot about this match. Jon Moxley sneaks a roll up with a handful of tights of Swerve to win the match. It was a 16-minute match. Hangman comes out at the end. Hangman and Moxley get into it, which was, I guess, somewhat of a build. Hangman goes for the buckshot, hits one of the Young Bucks. I can't even remember who it is. I got my notes here. He hit Matthew. He hit Matthew. And Moxley tried to get in with the briefcase. Swerve was just sitting down in the corner. And I thought maybe they'd do something, but I was like, yeah, you know what? The way the show's going, I don't think they're going to go there. But nothing based off of that little plot point where Swerve overheard a conversation with Hangman and the Bucks. I understand this was a different show. Listen, I'm not sure how this show would have landed had they done this before Forbidden Door and after All In. The fact that they did this 24 days before a big time show is one of the main reasons why this didn't land. It also just, like I said, outside of the atmosphere, and you guys could tell me from watching it at your homes, and if there's if there's anybody on this chat that is from Mexico and actually went to the show, God bless you. I mean, it looked like a lot of fun, but it's just like, hey, if watching it in the arena and watching it at home are two different things. Side note, and this is ridiculous. I don't know if this is actually going to air, because I hope to hell God that it didn't air. But it looks like Bryan Danielson made his return on Ring of Honor television at Global Wars. If that actually airs on television, if this was a dark segment, that's one thing. It's still ridiculous that Bryan Danielson really hasn't been seen to wrestling fans since October. But Bryan Danielson apparently showed up, whether it was at a taping or it was a dark segment, at Arena Mexico. Whoever the hell's idea that was is batshit insane. I know Bryan Danielson has a lot of say in his things and he loves that, but like, holy shit, man. That's one of the greatest of all time. You wrote him off, you effectively killed him, and he just comes back in a random segment with Shane Taylor Promotions, who I like Shane Taylor. Shane Taylor from Cleveland, man. From Cleveland. So, but that's another part of this problem. Listen, it played like a house show. And when you're building to one of your biggest shows of the year, you have got to do better with build. Mo, you're probably right. It was probably a Bryan Danielson call. It probably was. But still, this leads into my point of Tony Khan's such a mark that he can't just say no for like cohesiveness and stuff. He doesn't run his place like a business. He runs it like a mark. And that's why he can't tell Mercedes no. He can't tell Bryan Danielson no. He can't tell Jon Moxley no. He can't tell Hangman Adam Page or Will Ospreay, hey, you're winning. That's what we're doing. That's why there's so much disconnected stuff with this show. And as fun as the atmosphere looked, and I was entertained, sports entertained a little bit. It was a old school lucha match with the tradition, like Mystico and MJF stuff. That Mystico and MJF to me was the best thing on this show until the finish. Everything else on the show just felt like it was just there. Also, why are you having a 14-man tag match and a 10-man tag match on the same fucking show? 24 guys got on this show in multi-man tag matches, and then you had a 4-way for 4 million pesos. And God bless you if you looked up the exchange rate to find out what that was. I didn't look it up. Somebody else on the internet said, yeah, it's $210,000. Who the fuck cares? And then Hologram won, who's undefeated for some reason whatsoever and still hasn't gotten a championship match of any kind. That is the biggest indication ever that Tony Khan runs this place like he's a fucking child. And then he has the audacity to go on one of these Yahoo Finance interviews and basically says, yeah, we're having the best year we ever had. No, you're not. No, you're not. Like I said, cool atmosphere. You booked the show. You had more fans than you've had in any building in North America, really, in the last handful of months that was a non-pay-per-view. But holy shit, man. This is it was the most, I said it here in the title, this was the most pointless show imaginable. And any of you fanboys who are AEW people who are saying, man, that's the best Dynamite of the year. What? How? Good graps? Like I said, there was good wrestling on this show. None of it meant anything. The one match that meant anything had a shit finish, and that was MJF and Mystico. And they're probably going to run it back at All in Texas. And fuck me if that's the decision for Maxwell Jacob Frieda, who walked into the biggest show in company history as the World Heavyweight Champion. He faced Will Ospreay last year. He's going to face Mystico? Sin Cara? I appreciate how respected he is in Mexico. But if that's your direction for MJF going into All In, what in the fuck are we doing? And then Mercedes has got 97 championships, and she'll probably have 7 by July. I wouldn't be shocked if they just brought Athena to television and had Mercedes show up on I think there's a Ring of Honor show that week. Had Mercedes show up there. I think she might be defending it against Thunder Rosa, which cool. So by the way, where the fuck was Thunder Rosa on this show? We can get Mercedes Moné on this show. We can get Zeuxis. We get one women's segment on this show, but we don't get Thunder Rosa. Really? Really? Ty Mello? Brazilian? South American? What? This company's priorities are just all over the place. They don't make any fucking sense. So, I've been going on for about 45 minutes here. A lot of the reason I keep going is you guys keep bringing in the chats, and I appreciate it. That's cool. My day job is Sirius XM. I know people who work with Thunder Rosa. Everybody I've talked to says that Thunder is a delightful person, and I wish that she was treated a lot better. I don't know if she hurt somebody in the whole situation, the controversy that happened a few years ago. She deserves a whole hell of a lot better than what she's gotten. So yeah, that's AEW Grand Slam Mexico, everybody. I really don't know what this company's going to look like. 3 weeks from Saturday, they are having their WrestleMania. Let me ask you guys this before I go. Does it feel like a WrestleMania level build? Does it? I don't think so. The 3 top matches, they've done the bare minimum to build. Hangman and Moxley, they actually did something tonight, but Mercedes and Tony, they've done nothing for a month. Okada and Omega, they did everything last week. Omega wasn't even on this show. Those are the 3 matches that you have on this show right now. That's it. I don't know what this place is going to look like, man. They've got some things to fix. Their priorities are all over the place. And, maybe Grand Slam Mexico could have been a better show if they would have built it on the road to Forbidden Door. But on the road to your biggest show of the year, when you've got stories that you got to try to sell at a baseball stadium, this wasn't it, man. It was good for the atmosphere there. I appreciate, like, the aesthetics and how everything looked and how everything sounded. But this was one of the most pointless AEW shows that I've ever watched. It really was. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night because I know it's getting close to, it's after 1 o'clock in the morning, local, 1 o'clock on the East Coast. It's after 10 here on the West Coast. Appreciate all the chats. Thank you all for the generosity here in the chat. Hopefully I'm going to do this more and more often. I have been trying to experiment with things. I like doing the short form videos because some of those get interaction, but doing these with the chat and interacting with you, I might be doing this for AEW stuff, and we'll see how this thing goes. So thanks so much for watching. Go hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. My social accounts on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, is up there in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And thanks so much. I appreciate all the love and support. I'll see